Hi, everyone. Today is Saturday, October 11th, 2025. Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Morgan, and this is a talk I host twice a week to discuss my experiences on the path of soul transcendence. This offering is brought to you by the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness with the encouragement and support of my friend John Morton, who holds the mystical traveler consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness that does the work that we're doing here today. If you're new to the call, the format is simple. We're going to start by calling ourselves forward into the light, which is calling our awareness forward into the light of God that's already present. And then we're going to chant three Anai hues. Hue is an ancient name for God, and Anai invokes a quality of empathy and compassion. Then I'm going to play a video clip from my teacher, John Roger, and then I'm going to do a reading from Rabindranath Tagore. And then we can talk about whatever you would like. I did see Ron Holnick. If you'd like to call us forward in the light, my friend, I'd love for you to do that. I'm trying to figure out how to ask to unmute you if I can find you. Where are you? Let me see. Oh, there you go. You seem to be unmuted, I think. Oh, yeah, you're good. Go for it, man.
Lord God of all creation, we ask just now to be bathed in the presence of the Lord, in the remembrance that Lord, is what we are. And we are so grateful for this opportunity to share with each other and to stand forward in the essence of our very being. And for this time and this privilege, we give our thanks. So be it.
Who I am is wherever you are, and who I am is whatever you see. When you release the dilemma that you dwell in, and you confront yourself wherever you find yourself, then you will see me more clearly each time. I forget a lot of things. I forget people's names and where they come from and where they're going, but I never forget that I'm the traveler consciousness functioning on this level here. Never can forget that. It's like somebody's always got that in front of my eyes. No matter where I look, that's what I see. So often when I look at people, I don't see you physically. I only see this thing that is God. Always this thing. And when you have that difficulty, I think, oh, why could you have a difficulty, God? You're doing it. And I think, oh, yes, God is doing it. But that part that they're connected to, that they have identified with, that is their process of life, is separated. and in agony and in pain and in despair. I won't separate it anymore. I will connect it back up and maintain the connection even if you don't. And we're not doing anything that's not already done. And so there's no hassle, no concern, no worry, nothing. All we do is, breathe in, breathe out, have a little fun, a little falderall, see who's doing what, when, and where. Laugh. Oh, laugh. Absolutely laugh. Why? Because of the absurdity of it all. It's just absolutely absurd. There's only one thing, honest to God, that we have to remember, and that's the traveler who resides in your heart. When you have that, and you maintain that, you are in grace. Beru Speshan.
All right. This is a poem called All That Is Joy by Rabindranath Tagore. Let all the strains of joy mingle in my last song. The joy that makes the earth flow over in the riotous excess of grass. The joy that sets the twin brothers, life and death, dancing over the wide world. The joy that sweeps in with the tempest, shaking and waking all life with laughter. The joy that sits still with its tears on the open red lotus of pain. And the joy that throws everything it has upon the dust and knows not a word. All righty. Susan Velaskovic.
Thank you for calling on me, Jeffrey. I'm really kind of embarrassed about sharing this because it's so personal. I've operated under a very high stress level for probably a good portion of my 79 years. And I sometimes I feel like when I see things going wrong, I pull them into me. And I've been having a lot of problems with my gut. And rather than trying a new medication, and I'm on the verge of doing a stem cell infusion, I'm thinking that it might be related to stress. But I'm a little confused about this because I'm not sure. I want to do intercessory prayer, and I think somehow I can't sort that out. I can't sort out the stress and the intercessory prayer because it feels like I pull things from the outside into me and take on the negativity. Anyway, does that make any sense?
Yeah. Well, I guess on the label of intercessory prayer is you give your energy freely and unconditionally to the Spirit to do with as it will. There is another dimension called intercessory prayer, where you're sending light to parts of yourself. I actually think it might be helpful for you to start to relate more to a universe within you. That if you see something upsetting on the news, that you assume that you're seeing something upsetting in your consciousness. And that you send light to that and you work with that very directly. I think that a lot of people find it challenging and they feel blocked or incapacitated to do something about the injustice that they see in the world or the suffering. At the same time, I think that people miss the point. The consciousness, as far as I can tell, is always seeking its own healing. Like 24 hours a day, all the wounds within you are seeking their healing. And in many ways, there is an intelligence or an entelechy of the consciousness that already knows how to do that healing. what we have are structures, belief systems, blocks, limitations that we place within that prevent that healing from taking place. One of the biggest ways that we block the healing process that is inherent in the consciousness is by externalizing through the senses and distancing ourselves from what we perceive to be the problem. We look out into the world and we say, oh, the world is full of problems. And it would be more useful for us to look within and say, oh, I've created a lot of problems in here, right? Because the only place that the problem exists is inside of you, because that's where perception and that's where experience is actually occurring. And it's not like a big controversial statement to say that there's a whole lot of things going on in the even in the physical level that you're not perceiving or consciously processing. Everything that you're perceiving is very much an interpreted reality. And what scientists have found is that that reality that we perceive is largely informed by the beliefs that we have. So we see what we believe. We don't necessarily see what's there. Or, put another way, we may see light and shapes, but our interpretation is always placed in relation to the story of our life and the story of the world that we create with the ego. Beliefs in relation to self, beliefs in relation to context, beliefs in relation to time. And all of that comes together to form the story that you create in your mind. I think that bringing in that dimension of intercessory prayer, where the things that you're sending light to or tuning into, you say, well, this is really just a part of me that I'm healing through my directed light and attention and loving. Because that's really the function and the capability of the conscious self, is to direct attention and awareness. So when we place our loving focus on a part of us that is hurt, or on a part of us that feels incomplete, and we place that intention on whatever it is that you need, beloved, let's complete that, then it starts to heal immediately, because the intelligence of the consciousness is already there. And in many cases, the blocks that are placed were placed for very good reasons at very valid points in your experiential reality. It might have been in this lifetime where you witnessed something as a child, or it might have been something in a past lifetime where you witnessed something. And either way, it's not about judging those blocks or those positionalities. It's really about getting free of that, or seeing a level that is beyond that. So when I talk about the story and how that affects where you interpret reality, we just have to be very, very cognizant of the words we use to describe our reality, because someone is listening, and that someone is you. So each time you talk about the injustices of the political system, or the way the world works, or what's going on in Israel or Gaza or any of that other stuff, or what's going on in the Ukraine, all of a sudden something inside of you triggers, and then you're trying to work on those levels. But you're doing it through an externalized consciousness, so you become very debilitated in that. And then the pressure builds up, because you look out in the world and you feel like you should be doing something. And then because you're very action oriented, but then you feel incapable of doing what needs to be done in order to solve the problem you perceive. When the truth of the matter is, which I've said from the beginning, you have everything you need to heal everything you perceive. It's all within you. Therefore, it's within your jurisdiction to heal. So I also think that it's accurate that your stomach and some of the physical issues are the product of stress. Stress is the silent killer of our society. And the truth of the matter is, well, sitting doesn't help. Sitting too long obviously doesn't help. But stress, we live in a more and more stressful environment. And I don't mean it from like a current event standpoint, because the news certainly gives us reasons to stress about. But just look at from a basic sensory processing and stimulation level. We have an unprecedented level of connectivity and an unprecedented famine of intimacy in our society. Think about that. You're connected 24 hours a day to hundreds, if not thousands, of people in ways that you've never been connected before. And yet, it becomes a rare treat to just sit with somebody silently and be in their presence, or to drink up the sweet ambrosia of their loving essence and to just savor the person. It just doesn't happen anymore. There's so many little gremlins, digital gremlins pulling at your pant leg, asking for your attention, because our entire economy is built on attention. So if you wonder why you never had ADD before and all of a sudden well, of course you did, but if you ever wonder why your attention's not on what's most important to you, it's because a bunch of stuff in this economy, in this world, are competing for your attention. So from that perspective, it's very, very important for us to take time to disconnect from all that in the quietness and in the loving that we are and in the peace that we are. And it's very important that instead of being in a process of reactivity, which tends to enhance the stress, where something happens and we try it, it's just, you could call it like whack-a-mole consciousness, where it's like something pops up and you hit it and you just keep doing it over and over and over. There's a basic self-satisfaction that you get from getting things done. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it becomes like an addiction for you. And there's a lot of freedom in just sitting and feeling in there and seeing where the blocks are, seeing where the energy isn't flowing, and seeing where the problem actually emanates, and who's the you that you think you are that you're not anymore, that you're holding on to. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, very much. I listened to Eckhart Tolle 2 weeks ago, and he said we were lights with lampshades, and that some of us had lampshades that were thicker than other people's lampshades, and that when we see another person, we see it through their lampshade and our lampshade. And, it really made me start to think about, what is reality and what is truth. And I don't think there really is truth. There is all of
There is, it's just not below the cosmic mirror.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about the Bible, and that was a westernization of Christ's truths. And so it's just kind of like light to the whole thing, and lightening up.
Yeah, and I think the lightening up goes whenever you have a problem, you're there. So you're the source of that. So you go directly to that, and you go to that part of you and you say, I want there to be peace here. What do we need to do to get peace? It's just like if you had a conflict with a friend that you love very dearly, at a certain point you just call them up and you just say, I don't know what we have to say or do, but I don't want there to be anything but love between us. So let's just, whatever you got to say, whatever you got to do, let's do that. You need me to apologize? I'm happy to apologize. I just want love back.
Just this is really mundane, but I'm on the board of my co-op association, and we've got a management company that has not been, we have things they fix that are still leaking and things like that. And I find myself getting into this denseness with them and the person who hired them. And so how do I find the love when I want to do action? How do you find that? How do you do action? I I'm loving sometimes when I say things, but I haven't figured out how to get things done and be loving, is I guess.
Yeah, so for me, I can tell when the action isn't emanating from my ego, when I'm almost pleasantly surprised that action is required. So it's like for me, I do the forgiveness and the integration work within me. So like if the management association is dishonest and I get really triggered by their dishonesty, that means there's a part of me that's dishonest that I'm really triggered about and I need to heal. So I go in and go, how can I clear whatever I have against my dishonesty? Because all of us are dishonest sometimes. In very mundane ways, we can be dishonest. So let's just own that and love that in ourselves so that what's at stake is not whether or not I love those people being dishonest. That's already becomes a given. And then it just becomes what's my action level and what's my responsibility in this. So, what will often happen is once that state is fully clear inside of me, I'll get hit by, oh, you're supposed to cuss them out now. And I'll go, oh, I am? Okay. I know how to use swear words. Okay. I'll just start swearing really loudly and see what happens.
Yeah.
But you see the difference is like I'm not going, screw those people. I'm going, oh, really? I need to fight? Okay. Right on. I know how to do that.
And I think I'm doing that. I mean, I sometimes I feel really clear inside and I'm speaking up, but it isn't very well received, so
Yeah, I don't think that but see, that's the thing. The way you're describing it implies that you're not fully in that state because it's not really speaking up, it's just obeying the guidance you're being given. Speaking up implies that you're working against something that's unjust. Do you
I
get
see.
do you see
Well,
this?
yeah,
Do you see the
yeah,
subtlety there?
yeah.
Versus just, oh yeah, the spirit in me told me to do the thing and I did the thing and it was great. Now, in our mind, the did the thing we would really idealize and say, oh, the did the thing is go feed people experiencing homelessness or go volunteer at that park cleanup or go do a political campaign for this really wonderful person. You know what I mean? That's the did the thing that our mind wants in the perfectly sanitized, controlled reality that is the story of us, right?
Mhm.
But did the thing from a spiritual perspective when we're really in submission and neutrality, sometimes it's the unsexy thing. Sometimes the unsexy thing, like they didn't fix the pipe, but then you get an intuition going, I never learned plumbing. I need to learn plumbing. So then you fix the pipe. Now your mind goes, that's not right. That's not my I pay rent. I deserve to have a place that doesn't leak. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's that level. But at the level of submission to that higher action, it just becomes very neutral and very funny and entertaining. And I catch myself doing it because I can get very, very high and mighty. I can become like the hammer of
Ah.
justice. And right, and the truth of the matter is like I'll kind of be halfway through yelling at my family for this unjust thing that they did, or and then it'll finally hit me that like, oh, I don't really like this. Now, sometimes I'll stand for a point of view and I'll give very direct feedback, but it'll feel super neutral inside of me. I just like, it's important to do it. And I'll be like, oh, did I screw this up? Was I too direct? And I'll check inside and go, yes. Or I'll check inside and I'll go, no, they needed that. But if it's no longer about right and wrong, good or bad, if it's no longer about higher, lower, less or more, it's not about fault. It's not about blame. If it's just about following the loving, then I'm usually in safe territory.
I realized that my last frontier is the frontier inside me. It took me a long time to figure that out.
That's it. That's it. And it's a relatively newfangled invention, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
we didn't see a lot of people talking about direct inner mystical experience until you could say the Shravana movement in India, until Ezekiel in the Bible, until somewhat, I mean, arguably, I mean, Buddha did have some metaphysical assumptions. So you're talking about,
Confucius, that was family.
yeah, exactly. That's all around 500 BC. So as
Yeah.
far as I can tell, maybe there's just no evidence of it. This whole inner approach to life seems relatively new because if you read like the Rig Veda or things like that, it's which people like me apparently do, you see a very externalized relationship. It's like that which is divine is that which controls the weather and makes my plants grow and makes me have cattle that procreate and makes me, you know what I mean? Like it's a very externalized approach. And we could look at the relationship or the development of spirituality much in the way that a human consciousness develops over time in a given lifetime. We kind of start out with this non-dualistic awareness as babies. Then we have very clear awareness of our life path. Then around age 7, a veil drops and we don't anymore. Then the ego starts to really come in and we start to really develop that. And if you think about it, when you're very young, your parents are God because they're like the ones who make the light come out and the water go and the food come. So that's like you could look at that as the most primordial relationship with the infinite that we have is patterned by our parents. And that's why a lot of people struggle with this whole trust in God thing. A lot of that is on a basic self level because their parents might have been slightly inept when it comes to caring for them. And, and that was their karma, but it does tend to define or create blocks to that relationship when you have a God that's just this provider, controller, destroys things, creates things. Like if you're very externalized later on in life, you start to have more of an inner reflective process and mysticism, but it's not immediate in most people unless they're a reincarnation of a yogi or something. Most people have to go from a highly externalized relationship to the infinite to a highly internalized relationship to the infinite. And a lot of people don't even get there. So it's this lifetime. They will eventually, thankfully. But I agree with you. The last frontier is for us to take full accountability and responsibility as gods of our own inner reality and to exercise co-creatorship of that experience, to know ourselves as the divine spark that we are, and to exercise that agency within us.
As you're talking, I'm seeing like Star Wars inside my consciousness everywhere.
You do. That has fueled you. Outrage has been like
Yeah.
fire. It's meant that even on 3 hours of sleep you could go out and you could pass out papers all day long. Even it gave you superhuman abilities.
That's
You
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
you were running on outrage, and now you're going to learn to plug into a different source. And a lot of people still have that going. They want it to be so clear that there are bad guys and there are good guys inside of us, when the truth of the matter is, it really is indeed very relative. And in the universal sense, there just isn't that distinction. It's like, why did John Roger call the negative power the loyal forces of the opposition? Why? My sense is it's because they're very loyal to what they believe God's commandment is.
Yeah.
They're doing their version of devotion to God. Now, we may not like it, and that's our right. But that doesn't mean that they're evil or wrong or bad or whatever. It just means that they're doing something that seems to run counter to our intention, which is very frustrating.
But if you think that there's no truth and conscious on the conscious level, then it makes a lot of sense, that the truth
Right.
is.
Truth is, you could think of it like this. Truth is an action level, called checking things out and verifying and constantly adapting. And truth is fluid on this level because you're always looking for a
Mhm.
higher, more accurate way of working with your consciousness.
Yeah, I read I heard something that Thomas Jefferson wanted the Constitution to last for 19 years because he said the next generation will need to change it and adapt. And,
And I think, well, yeah, I think Jefferson said something like, if we don't have some kind of social revolution every 10 years, then
yeah,
the democracy will
yeah,
die or something like that.
yeah,
I'm probably misquoting that. It's fine.
but it's close enough.
But yeah, it's having that battle of good and evil inside of you may in fact also be, you want to talk about, I gave you the final frontier, but here's the final frontier. The final frontier is moving beyond that level. It's soul transcendence, and it's living in reality here, physically engaged, while our consciousness is very directly perceiving the infiniteness that we are.
And when I hear Ron Helmick, that's what I experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I like him having one foot in both. And I think we're all capable of consciously being that divinity walking on this planet. We're all capable of walking as the Christ on this planet. And to me, the final frontier is you get beyond all of it. So at first, when you start to push into a kind of a deconstruction of that which is an individuated experience, and you start to move into a more universal spiritual experience, the lower self, the all the mechanisms below that level will work to re-identify you with the individual experience, because that's how this was designed. So this battle of good and evil in you that keeps getting lit up, you might observe, or you might start to notice that it tends to flare up when your consciousness is moving beyond. And I say it not in a hierarchical sense, but let's just say your consciousness is dissolving more fully into the ocean of love and mercy as a
Yeah.
practical living experience. All those other parts of you are going to fight back a little bit. And
I can tell you about that.
yeah, and no, and the fighting back is they'll get you to get hooked on or identified with a problem in the world, a problem in the world. And your solution may be one, just identifying that this is a bit of a trick, it's a bit of a hook, and that you don't want to go there. Or you go to the level of the hurt, because what can also happen is as you move into more subtle levels of spirit, it will become incompatible with some of those patterns. So that'll light it up. Then you'll have the opportunity to clear it and release it. And you'll notice an immediate kind of like, when it releases, it's like a river of consciousness starts flowing again. And some of the pressure you're feeling may be that more powerful current of the river of consciousness moving in and through you. And it starts to feel like it's bottlenecking in specific places. So it's like damming the flow. And then that will create pressure in your consciousness. And sometimes that flow will be incompatible with the person that you think that you are. So you may have to let go of even this part of you, I'm the advocate, or I'm the, let's say, yeah,
I
that
don't want to
kind.
run anything anymore. I don't want to be the boss. I
Yeah,
just want
yeah, no, but my point is you need to identify, it may be an individual block, or it may be a you that you are trying to still be that you're not anymore.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah,
need to let that one go and be born today. That's why I tell people, just be born today, right now,
exactly.
because that's the most compatible with the flow of spirit right now. if you try to hold on to who you thought you were, that just gets in the way. And sometimes people who are ready for that spiritual connection at that level where it's flowing through so strongly, what will happen is the body will deconstruct the foundations of the ego or the foundations of the identity, which to a large extent is built on memory. So people will start to lose their memory because the memory that they were trying to hold on to out of ego identification, is no longer compatible with the flow that's coming through. Now, that may be inconvenient for people they live with, but at the same time, understanding the sacredness of it and the beauty of it. And there really is no accident, there's really no arbitrariness to it. It's more that there's a generosity of spirit that even when we ourselves, through our conscious intention, can't seem to bring ourselves to let go of who we thought we were, it's like something comes in and says, it's okay, beloved, I'll help you let that go. And then you let go of the memory into this, and then all of a sudden the energy's flowing. Now all your friends and family and all that might be, oh, he's just not the same person he used to be, I don't know, and he's losing his marbles. But it's kind of like the price we have to be willing to pay at times to experience more directly the presence of spirit within us.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I think I'm cooked.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Thank you, Ron, for being a way shower.
Um, I realize that there may be people now who have raised their hand who haven't shared with me before. Is there anybody, can you raise your non-digital hand or make it visible that, Marcia, have you shared with me before? I can't see you, so I don't know. You've shared with me before? Great. Okay. I'm going to move on to some people that haven't shared with me. So, Luann, you said you've shared with me or no? You haven't shared. Okay. Is that okay, Steve and Marcia? Okay, great. Okay, Luann.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Luann.
Hi.
Um, so I've had an occurrence of something that I've had maybe a handful of times in my life, and most recently had it with news that my mom was sick. She wasn't dying, but something was up, and my physical body went through an experience of panic and anxiety, nausea, that kind of thing. Um, and I've had it before, and I had it once before when my dad was in the process of transitioning and my mom was in the hospital. So it's definitely parental related, it seems, specifically with my mom, where I sort of feel sort of hijacked by the karma. I can't quite settle. I shiver. I'm shaking, and it's just a unique experience that feels like it might be tethered to something beyond them, but I'm not sure if it is, or just a maturation process, or just a history of this life. And then, so I have a question. That's my main question, about if there's any evidence of something that you might see. And then I also wanted to ask, I'm glad I had forgotten, but it was a question I had about the veil dropping at that age. And if there are traumas around that time, is anything particularly accelerated or arrested if something happens around the time when the veil drops?
Well, in terms of the veil dropping, so I would say that most of our core beliefs and identity levels and a lot of the stuff that we work with is either learned or surfaced in the first 7 years of our life. So, in terms of brain development, it's like that most rapid period of brain development anyway. So, the tricky part is because you're learning so quickly, you may see your parents do something or behave in a certain way, and that'll get logged as a directive in the consciousness, in the basic self, in the subconscious. So, it is true that those years are very important in terms of framing up how you're going to process the world in this lifetime. In terms of an interference with the veil dropping is a fairly set mechanism as far as I can tell. However, the anchoring of the soul uh, into the conscious self personality can be a bit slower. So, if you consider the conscious self an interface between a personality level that is largely created based on memory, that is managed, accessed, and expressed through the basic self. The soul extrudes a portion of itself into that in order to gain conscious experience of decision making.
Okay.
And decision making you could look at as the direction of attention and awareness.
Uh-huh.
Now, so to answer your question, I don't know about the veil like getting interfered with. I've not seen that before. Usually, the veil will drop in a specific range, and it will usually be to a large extent karmically determined or based upon the life plan. So
Okay.
that's not. I don't think that's one that because the veil dropping is essentially the basic self losing access to the entire life plan, so that you can have the illusion of chance and experience, and you don't see the plan. Your high
Okay.
self still retains access to the plan, and your high self will still provide guidance based upon the plan and will still attempt to ensure that the direction of life does two things, right? Ensures that you complete incomplete actions from past lives that were agreed to be completed in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those are very fixed and some of those are a bit malleable. Okay. And then the second is to give the soul learning opportunities to gain experience in very specific ways. Because there's a level, the lower level is action, reaction, complete. It's like you have a debt, you got to pay it. It's like a credit card bill, you pay it. That's the lower level. From the soulic perspective, gaining experience is more about pulling specific frequencies, impressions, awarenesses out of specific uh, interactions on the lower levels.
Okay.
But it's
And so
not,
that, okay. Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure exactly what the dropping was. That's why I wanted to say. So you're
The
saying that
veil dropping is the basic self losing access to the
losing
life plan.
access. Okay.
It's still now the basic self still has because the basic self is loaded up with all the memory
Right.
necessary to complete the karmas.
Okay.
That's why a lot of people think that the thoughts in your head are original. Many of the thoughts in your head either come from incomplete thoughts from past lifetime, incomplete mental action from past lives that then was stored as memory,
Mhm.
accessed and deployed within your conscious experience, or it may be a regurgitation or impression of previous experience that was stored as memory by the basic self and served back up, or it may be ambient or environmental, meaning there could be a thought form floating in the air, or a person may be connected into a collective subconscious action A person may be exposed to patterning through subliminal communication from media, but there are a lot of sources of thoughts that are not original ingenuity of the conscious self. I've actually found that the most useful function of the conscious self is to direct loving and clearing action and to hold an attention on that which is of our highest nature. Other than that, most of what the conscious self does just makes trouble. So if we can get the conscious self to a state of blankness or openness or love, just kind of like a peaceful loving that has no, as soon as a thought bubbles up, you either observe it, it goes away, or it just clears with the energy of it. That's a more constructive use of the conscious self, as far as I can tell. In that quietness, we also become more receptive to the guidance of the high self. Now, in terms of what you do in relation to your parents, there is a pattern of disassociation that you have where somehow you associate it's almost like there was an absence of a specific type of loving, nurturing, or safety, like a
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
So it's like I see two very distinct stories of your childhood, very contradictory. And when the contradiction becomes highlighted through your interactions with your parents, then you disassociate.
And are
And
you
it's
saying that disassociation are the quote symptoms that I described to you? Or is that like a fallout of the disassociation? When I say I'm like panicked or I have anxiety or that kind of thing, like how are you using like what does the disassociation look like? How are you
yeah,
describing that?
what happens is you go into a fight or flight response at the body level,
Okay.
but your mind becomes disassociated. Therefore, you can't exercise a lot of agency in your consciousness. And
Okay.
it would feel as if your body is possessed. So, disassociation would be like this thing gets triggered and you somehow feel like you've lost control or lost reference to yourself, your center.
Hmm?
And then your heart starts beating really fast and you would get tension here and your stomach might start to feel a little odd and your digestion might function oddly too. But it's more of a, yeah, it's more like almost like a PTSD symptom, to be honest. But I'm trying to understand what happened.
Well, my parents separated when I was young, and that's why I asked about the veil because it was about 7 or 8 years old. So that's why I was linking it to that time. Um, and my dad raised us in a big family. Um, so it could have been an abandonment level on my
That's the
mom.
one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. It's like two contradictory stories. There's like how the family described itself versus what happened energetically under the surface.
Mhm.
So,
Well, it's a pretty tight family and a basically rather loving family. I mean, it's pretty cohesive and communicative and um,
but
not
there's
without,
something else.
yeah. Um, but the disturbance of my mom, um, you know, being asked to leave created a whole different thing for, the
I think that's it.
7 of us remaining kind of thing.
I think that's it.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
think
didn't know how much detail you need.
it's a contradiction because
Okay.
on the one hand, like you said, it's a loving, tight-knit family.
Uh-huh.
And on the other hand, there was an absence of a certain energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then in order to cope with the absence, the system created a capacity to disassociate and relate collectively to the family rather than you having trouble,
No, keep going.
rather than address the contradiction of that.
Okay. All right. So is there a way to bridge or,
Yeah.
move
Have
out
you
of the
processed,
contradiction? Yeah.
have you fully processed the upset around your mother being absent?
As many times as I know how to and continue to if it
No,
arrives.
did you process it through the body though?
Um, Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean,
This
yeah.
one can disconnect from the body.
Okay. Okay.
It would be like this. Did you ever process the feeling of absence of your mother's holding you at night? If your
No,
if your body had a thirst for that or a yearning for that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand, but I had a lot of siblings who did all those things for me,
It's
including,
not the
and
same.
yeah, so no. Then
It's
the
not the
answer would be
same.
no. I just, you know. So is that what I might be processing in those moments when it comes to her near transitioning moments where that's what's coming forward? Okay.
There's
Because
a
I can nurture that in a different way if I know what it is.
That's my point.
Yeah,
It's
good. Okay.
what's coming up is a substantial incompleteness.
Okay.
Like you haven't come to completion in the relationship because you've related to the concept of her and her absence, but not the physiological reality of the trauma of that
Oh, that's great. Okay, got it.
and how the memory is kept in the body. So
Okay.
it would be like you could do this inside of you. I'm not saying you need to, but you could even go to her and say, "Can we just lay together and hold each other
Mm-hmm.
so I can feel that?" And in that moment, you can go back through all the times that you needed a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I know your siblings provide look very loving, but just not the same.
Okay.
You can go back through and you can weave in all of that again.
Okay.
I think that'll heal it.
All right. When I went in to do SEs and tried to mock it up, after the fact was over, a lot of it did come back, but I didn't associate it quite in that way. So I can do that again and then link it together more
Yeah.
cohesively. So it's just a more cohesive experience. And then I'm probably more able to be helpful than to freak
Think
out.
of it like if the little girl in there is losing her mommy again
Okay. Yeah.
and have compassion for that because it never quite integrated. It's like this decision was made without consulting you and you were one of seven mouths, and it's like
One of six.
one of six.
Yeah.
Oh, the seven of you met, you were counting your father.
Yes.
Got it. One of six. Point still stands.
Yeah.
Uh, you kind of had to just cooperate and participate and make it work,
Mhm.
which is great. And it's really okay if a part of you wasn't okay with that. If the little girl and you didn't understand and felt that she was being deprived of something.
Yeah, and because of the volume of people, there were plenty of distractions and not it wasn't something I could just sit in the corner
You
and
didn't
deal with.
process any of those
A
emotions.
lot of it just kept going, and a lot of love from my father, of course. So
Of course.
I assumed that it was picked up where it left off, but I can see what you're saying. I appreciate it.
I'm not I think you got everything you needed. I
I
think we
did.
all get everything we need. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying sometimes in the midst of moving forward in a healthy psychological way, we lose sight of the part of us that isn't particularly mature and doesn't feel okay.
Okay.
So it's just giving that little girl what she needs, the holding, like holding her
Mhm.
and having that complete. And it may also be even if you stood in the shoes of your mother
Mhm.
and you started doing self forgiveness as your mother,
Mhm.
because
I
you may
cannot.
be,
I've done
yeah,
some. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's more on a subconscious level. Like it's not necessarily going to make sense intellectually.
Yeah, it
It's,
doesn't, and that's why I get hijacked by it, and that's why I appreciate it to a certain level, and then also wanted an objective viewpoint on it because I can't see it when I'm in it.
yeah, no, and this is pretty objective because I know nothing about your personal
Okay.
history other than the limited bits that you told me, but I'm just sharing that there's some contradiction in there that
Yeah.
seems to be causing a lot of what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a few and far between experience. It's not something that I've has occurred a lot because this kind of event hasn't happened a lot. And it's happening more as she's aging, so it's coming forward more with more
Maybe ask the little girl in there what would be most healing for her in relation to your mother and let her guide the process.
okay.
I think because of you have some close tolerance and some structured intellect capacity, which is great.
Yeah.
It's easy for you to drown out the the voice of that one.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because my intention with sharing with you was to try to be more clear about how I ask because I tend to meander along and blah, blah, blah. So I was trying to be very curt and crisp in my request.
I
Or
found it very
doing
difficult to
differently,
understand your
actually.
question, actually.
Say that again?
I found it very difficult to follow what you were saying when you
Yeah,
initially asked.
yeah, and most of the time I have to be interrupted. So I was trying something different.
No, no, I appreciate that your mind kind of doubles back on itself.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you have an extra layer of editing that causes it to be a little cut up.
Okay.
But that doesn't change the fact that you're a very deep thinker
Uh-huh.
and that you look at small details and things like that. But so that's not like I'm saying you can get caught in this process, the cycling, and you lose sight of just your body giving you feedback. That's a very clear signal that there's an incomplete there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Um, well, we didn't get to our last share. I don't remember your name, but I would like to get you next time. So hopefully you'll come back. We'll be here again on Tuesday. Um, well, thank you all for being here. Wishing you a beautiful weekend. God bless you. I love you. Peace be still. The blessings already are.